Alrighty, well, welcome back to the Reckless Hope Show. Caleb Rhodes here with the old Jason Holman, Reckless Workforce Director. Thank you all for joining us if you're watching this video. So Jason, how long have you been with Reckless?
I came here in April. It all started back when Jordan and I in 2014, we both went through the same rehab together in Missouri. It was a long-term faith-based rehab. The whole thing was 10 months, and he was there a month before me, so it was 9 months total. And it was a large rehab, so there was it's kind of like a college campus almost, and so him and I lived in the same dorm and everything, so we literally spent every day together that entire process. So, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of difficult stuff going on then, being away from family and trying to get our lives right. So Jordan and I get pretty close. And so that's kind of how it all started. I get asked all the time how some guy from Maine ended up in Pryor, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
looking for this little nonprofit.
Maine's a long ways away.
Yeah,
because here, I think it's really cold. Like this week, we were talking, it's going to be 28 or something. You're like, that's like summer.
Yeah, it's a warm spell.
You're not used to this down here. It's crazy.
But yeah, I had, this show is the Hope Show, and I've had some things go on in my life that led to me coming here that would definitely give a lot of people hope if they were to hear that story.
So tell us a little bit.
What we want to do is
tell us a little bit about your story before you went to treatment. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I've gone to treatment 2 different times. This last time I was sober for about 5 years. Jordan and I both completed that program, and he moved back here, and a lot of people know kind of how Reckless got started, but if not, you can look on the website too. I think there's a little story that tells you, and so you can hear his side of the story. But as far as for me, I stayed at that rehab, and I actually did an internship for a year. I actually worked there, got hired on, and it was faith-based, so it was all biblical-based. So I wasn't, I wasn't a counselor, or I didn't have a degree or anything. It's more of just ministry work. But anyway, I worked there for a year, and then I became full staff. After that, I got hired on full-time, and I did that for a couple more years. And so that's what I was doing when I completed. Jordan kind of went on to get this started. But a few years ago, my father got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and he was working in Alabama at the time, so I helped him move back to Maine. And a week after they moved back, he ended up having a heart attack, and he had to get a stent put in his heart valve, one of his heart valves, and so he had a lot going on. So I decided to move back to Maine. That ministry was a lot of work. It was a missions field. It's 7 days a week.
Yeah,
I can imagine. You live there. You're with the guys all the time. I managed a business that funded the ministry, a car wash and everything. So I kind of got to a point. I was you know what? I think I want to move back, get around my family, try and help them out. My dad's not doing very well. It's probably one of the worst decisions I ever made.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that as we go. But so yeah, I moved. I put a 2-week notice in at the ministry, at the rehab, served a 2-week notice, and moved back. And within 4 or 5 hours of hitting the road, driving back to Maine with a car full of stuff, the motor, I lost the motor in my car.
Golly.
It was an old Buick Century, and a part had stripped. The bolt for a lifter stripped out of it. So anyway, now I'm on the side of the road. I ended up having to rent a U-Haul, and I spent every dime that I had saved to make the trip, and I still had to borrow a few $100s from my sister for gas money in order to make it home. That's how. So things weren't going very well.
So you went from Missouri to Maine, right?
Yep.
Gosh.
And I only made it to Indiana before I lost the motor in my car.
So, how long of a drive was that?
Total, it's 26, 27 hours. Actually, no, to here it was it's 24.
Dang.
From there, yeah. So, but yeah, I got hired on to a company that I used to weld for. At one point in time, I was a certified welder. There's a real high demand for that pretty much all the time. So as soon as I called, they called me right back, and I got hired on. And of course, doing that stuff, you're around some good people for sure, but you're also around a lot of people that aren't doing the right thing, especially for a guy like me in the way of my past, the way things have gone before. So, especially with all the money you make and everything. But I actually took over my parents' car. They had a four-door Ford, and they had a loan out on it. And so I started using it because I didn't have that vehicle at the time anyway. So I took the payment over for them too, which kind of gave them a break with everything going on with my father. And so just things like that, man. I had like a lot of responsibility going on and trying to help my parents out. And I slowly, when I first got back, I was going to church and reading my Bible and doing the whole deal. And then within a couple of months, I just slowly phased that out. And I started taking basically any job that came up. If there was overtime for the weekend, if there was 7/12s at a shutdown, I'd be, hey, send me. And just started taking everything I could. And there was weeks where I'd go weeks without even having a day off. And so not only am I not doing the things for my recovery that I need to do, but I'm also wearing myself out and, grinding myself to a halt. So I was around stuff all the time, constantly, but I would kind of shake it off and just be like, this is what I need to do. I need to keep going. It was just all about the money. And so it went good for a while, a few months or whatever. And I slowly started kind of getting into some things. But it was only like once in a great while. I was on the road or something. And because a lot of guys, when you're around them, they think like you have to be doing the same thing they are. So they're on your case constantly, you know what I mean? Like peer pressure, I guess you could say. And when you're 6 hours away from home, staying in a hotel with those guys, I mean, you can't really just leave or, I don't know. You can eventually, but you've got to make plans. They get a different job and all this stuff, which I started to do actually. It got to the point where I knew I couldn't be doing this anymore. And I started getting the hiring process at the paper mill that's in my hometown. And I was like one step away from that when one Sunday, and this is kind of where everything fell apart. One Sunday, I didn't have anything to do, but that evening I had a plan with my girlfriend and her family and stuff, but I didn't have anything going on all day. And at this point, I kind of had this justification where if I was just by myself, if I was on the road or if I wasn't around anybody, I wasn't going to be driving or anything like that, then it'd be fine, I'll go get high or whatever. And so one of my work crew guys I worked with was texting me. Finally, I was like, all right, I'll come meet you. So I took off to meet him. And one of the big problems, so here I am, I've only used it a couple of times. I mean, people do this stuff for their entire lives and don't have what I had happen, but I think God kind of made it this way. So this did happen to me, which I'll get to in a second. But so I went in things with drugs. Obviously, one of the big problems with them is you don't know what you're getting. You don't know where it came from. You don't know how potent it is, if it's weak, if it's strong, if what it's mixed with, whatever. And this particular time, it was fairly strong. And basically, I did too much. And I was driving down the road after. This was like a couple hours later, and I started to nod out, like basically fall asleep. And I ended up falling asleep, and it was on a 55-mile-an-hour Route 2, which is back in my hometown. And I drifted down off an embankment, grassy embankment, hit a telephone pole head on with my truck that I just bought like 2-3 months before. It was like a 2015 Silverado. I made like 2 payments on it. And I hit the telephone pole. They think what happened was that I must have tried to jerk the wheel right before I hit it, because the truck like turned into it and it completely cut the left front part of my truck off like a knife. Took my tire and rim and suspension and everything and sliced it right off, and it was laying off to the side like 20 feet away from the truck.
How fast were you going?
So they said I was probably going like around the speed limit, like 55, 60 probably. And never stopped, never slowed down.
Yeah.
So I was out. I never came to. I didn't come to until the police, the ambulance were already there. They already basically had me out of the truck. That was by the time I finally came around. And then, so I went to the hospital, and they got me handcuffed to a bed in the hospital because they're going to arrest me after, because I picked up 4 charges plus a summons. I picked up 2 felony possession charges, paraphernalia charge, and then what they call drug DUI. It's DUI, but it's under the influence of drugs instead of alcohol. Yeah. And then I picked up a summons, a fine for failure to maintain control of a motor vehicle. So I have 5 things total. And so here I am, I think it was over 5 years, clean and sober at that point. Not only that, but I've worked for a ministry. I've counseled and ministered 2 men who went down the same road that I did.
Yeah.
You know, I did that for a living. So I mean, you want to talk about shame? I was so like, how did I do this?
Yeah.
And especially where, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I was only got mixed up in it a few times here and there too. So it's like, how did it come to this? You know what I mean? Like, how did me get mixed?
The few times.
You know, it's like,
blew up
which
into
doesn't.
that.
I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter if it's one time or 10 times.
Exactly.
You can't
Yeah.
beat that stuff. I mean, that's how it goes with that stuff. But still, you know, as far as like how I felt at the time, I was like, how did this happen? You know, like what did I do? And I honestly wanted to, like, I wasn't suicidal, but I had definitely had quite a few thoughts.
Very
like,
frustrated.
Why could I have not just died in that truck, in
Yeah.
that crash? Like, why did I have to crawl out of that crash? You know what I mean? Like, it would have just been, like, that's the point I'm at, you know. So, over the next few days, I'm kind of trying to figure out what I got to do. I think I know I got to get back to God, and I need to, you know, do some work on myself. But at the same time, I just got done working where I was working too, and I was just about to get into this paper mill, and I also had a couple other jobs that were like right on the fence of, you know, basically the only reason I'm not working there is because I haven't told them yes yet, you know. And so I had a few jobs. At one place I had to go take a tour, and as long as I liked what I saw, I was hired. And so I'm sitting there, I was like, you know, do I, you know, take one of these jobs but try to do some stuff in the evenings, or try to get some counseling appointments, or do I completely give in and go check in somewhere? Yeah. And they had a teen challenge in Maine. They have them all over the country, and the same place that I previously went through and worked at, Jordan and I went through, and they have one in Maine. So I called them up, and it was like a Thursday, and they're like, we're just getting ready to, they took the whole house to Massachusetts to some big graduation thing for some guys or whatever. They're like, we won't be back till Monday, so we can't take you in till Monday. So kind of gave me a few days to think about some stuff, which probably wasn't a good thing, because I almost didn't go.
Yeah.
I ended up going, I think like the following day. My mother was giving me a ride to this other place that I just had to go take a tour. It was like they made like cutlery, like forks and knives and stuff like that. It was like a little factory. Anyway, on the way there, there was a construction going on, and they had both lanes stopped going both directions because they were like moving some equipment or whatever. So we're sitting there. I mean, it's a good like 10-15 minutes, and I swear that like God put me in this position to like sit there and think about what I was doing. Like he like put me in, like made me stop. And finally, after sitting there for a few minutes, I told my mother, I was like, just turn around. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, turn around. She's like, I can't do this. I was like, I can't go get this job. It's like, it's not going to work. I was like, I got to get myself checked back in, get some help.
You never thank God for construction.
No.
You're always so frustrated, like,
and I remember
get
too,
me through this.
Like, not only was it construction, but usually construction, like, one lane is going, you know, and you just have to wait, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. But the whole thing was stopped. So it's like, how often do you do construction where the whole thing stopped?
Yeah.
Like, and we were the first one in line too, So it, like, I was right there, almost ready to go, but I just had to sit there and think about it. Yeah. And I looked back. I didn't think of it at the time. I look back on it now, and I swear it was almost like God had it worked out to where.
Oh, no doubt.
And He honored my decision, which I'm gonna keep telling the story, but. It's pretty crazy things that went on. So if there's anybody that thinks that they've gone too far and that they can't get back, then listen to the rest of the story.
If you ever stopped in construction, you might listen to God.
I remember at one point, like in the evening, because I was going through withdrawals and stuff too, and just but I started watching some music videos on my phone. It was all worship videos, and I remember laying there like going through a bunch of my favorite ones and just like laying there crying, like, how did I get away from all this? You know what I mean? Because I didn't even watch a music video or read a verse in my Bible, let alone done anything in like a few months, So, yeah, I was just like, how did I get just so much shame and guilt? So I went to that rehab. I checked in on a Monday, and I did 3 months of being like a resident in the rehab. And then they were actually short-handed. So my last 3 months there, I actually kind of worked there because I had previous experience working for a teen challenge and stuff. I got my cell phone back, and I actually ran a shift every day, almost every day, at the house, basically kind of being like an aide at the house. And so I did that my last few months there and got back into serving. And so that was good. But December came around, and my court case I was due in court. And so one of the staff members gave me a ride, and we go in the court. It's open at like 8 o'clock. They open the doors. Everybody goes and sits in the courtroom, and the door right behind like the judge's desk, like where his quarters are or whatever.
Yeah.
The clerk comes out of that door and she kind of pokes her head out and she waves to the bailiff, and the bailiff goes walking over, and she's like, they're whispering for a second, and then they holler my name, and they kind of wave me over, you know. So I'm like, oh gosh.
Oh no.
What is this all about? You know what I mean? They're coming out of the judge's quarters, you know, there's 50 people there and they're hollering to me, not somebody else, you know. It's like, oh man. So I walk up and they handed me a copy of my bail conditions, and there was a little signature on the bottom of it and a little note written by the judge, and it said no complaint filed. And she said the police never filed a report for your case, so you're free to go.
Thank
and
you, God.
She said they have 90 days to file a police report, and considering it's already been like 60 or whatever it was, then she's like, I highly doubt they're going to. But she's like, I'd make sure you keep your nose clean for the next 30 days because it could bring some stuff up. So, yeah, so here I got 4 charges plus that summons, and I was just told that I was free to go, right?
Wow.
So I walk over to the staff member, and I tell him what's going on. So we get up, we go to leave, and my mother had kind of shown up a little late, and she's just walking through the door as I'm walking out. She's like, where are you going? I'll tell you outside.
Yeah,
like,
let's get out of here.
We gotta go. So I told her outside what was going on, and then so it was like God just completely wiped my slate clean, like completely 100%.
Yeah,
and
just like He does for all of us.
There's even more confirmation of it. I had what's called gap insurance on my loan in my truck. So basically, say if you have a $10,000 loan out and you crash your vehicle and it's only worth $8,000, then that $2,000 is covered in the gap insurance, the $2,000 the difference. And mine was actually $5,000. It was $4,900 and whatever dollars. So I get this letter in the mail. My mail was going to my mother's house at the time, because I was still in that rehab, and she sent me a picture of it, and it was saying that the gap insurance, I've never had to settle a claim on gap insurance. I didn't know how it worked. And there was all these forms that I was supposed to be like gathering up and sending to them, and so finally there was like a final notice, and the date on it was 2 days from that day. So I had 2 days to get this all done.
Yeah.
Or I owe $4,900 whatever dollars. So one thing I had to do was get the 2 separate forms from the insurance, and so I called them, and I needed a police report too. So I was like, hey, can you get a copy of the police report? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, we got a website we use. He's like, I'll go on and grab it. I'll fax that to you too. So he puts me on hold, and then he's on hold for like a few minutes, and I'm like, what is this guy doing? So finally he comes back and he's like, hey, I've tried a few different ways, but he's like, I can't find your accident. I can't find a copy of the police report. He's like, you're gonna have to call the police station. So I call the police, and the only one that can get into the computer, like with all that stuff, with the administrative passwords or whatever, is the police chief, and he's not there that day. So he'll be tomorrow. So now I have one day, like this is the last day I have to get this all together. And I call, and he says that, he's like, yeah, I texted that, the officer that was at your accident that day. He's like, he actually no longer works in law enforcement, and he never wrote a police report. He never wrote a police report that day. So I'm trying to see if I can get some sort of statement out of him or something. Yeah. So come to find out that not only was like this stuff not turned in, like he never even wrote one to begin with. It wasn't like it got like shoved under the desk or something. Like, and I don't know if that was the reason he didn't work in law enforcement anymore. Like if he got fired over it, because he told me, he's like, he no longer works in law enforcement, and he never wrote a police report. So luckily this gap insurance company, there's one other thing you can do is you can write your own statement, but they have like this guideline and like different questions you got to have answered, and so they like emailed me that, and I wrote out my own statement and ended up getting covered, so I got that paid. But yeah, that was just like further confirmation that like not only like the only thing that exists from that accident is the estimate of my truck from the insurance company. Yeah. Other than that, like there's no other officer that was there that still works in law enforcement that could bring something up. There's no paperwork. There's no like, and I mean I didn't say this either. They'd ended up taking some of my blood. They had 2 vials of my blood, and they had I still had some. It was methamphetamine was one of them. I still had some of that left over, so they had found that, and then the paraphernalia, some of the spoon and needle. I got back into needles at the time, So they had all that stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, they had it, and like I'm sitting at the cop. They brought me to the police station after the hospital let me go, and so I'm sitting there, and like while they're writing up all these fines and stuff, the other guy's like bagging up all this evidence while I'm chained to the chair, and I'm just like I watched them, like they had everything, like there was, I mean, everything that you need. So, and I went from that to like it doesn't even exist. So
man, that is just.
And
It's
I
only by the
have,
grace of God, you know.
I have one former charge from like, it's the only, before this was the only time I'd ever been arrested. It was like 7 or 8 years ago now, but that charge was a felony too. So anytime you have a felony, if you do something else, even if it's just a misdemeanor charge, it's like magnified because of that felony. And even if it was like years ago, you haven't done anything since. If you get more charges, they look at you. It doesn't look as good for you as it would for somebody else. Yeah, it looks a lot worse. So, yeah, and I would have lost my license because of the DUI. So, you know, even if I do go to rehab and get myself straightened out, now I got to figure out how I'm going to get a job and get to work and everything. So it just like everything about it was just insane. But, you know, I'm careful to tell the story. I don't want to make it sound like it's some get out of jail free card.
No.
And it isn't, because that same day that I went to court, I was doing this Bible study on the book of Galatians, and what the study was is I had to do a 1-page report on every chapter of Galatians, and it happened to be on 5 that day. And so when I got back that afternoon, because it's the type of rehab where you work every day, like you don't really have to pay to be there, but you work jobs like a lot of places that we send people to. So most of the guys were at whatever job they were doing. I had the day off because I had to go to court. So when I got back, nobody's around. So I'm like, well, I'm going to work on some of my homework, whatever, you know. And I read through the book of Galatians, and that's when I read through 5:13 and end up with this tattoo. It says, "You, my brothers, were called to be free, but do not use that freedom to indulge a sinful nature, but rather serve one another in love." And like I read that same scripture that same day, that everything was wiped off, and it just like it really stuck out to me. You know, like there's a purpose for why you didn't end up with these charges. You know, it's not that Jason Holman is so cool and I love Jason Holman so much that I'm going to wipe his slate clean so he can go do whatever he wants. That's not. Like, the Bible talks a lot about being redeemed or being bought, and like that's the way I look at it. Like, he literally bought me. It's like, you're not going to go this direction. You know? I'm going to keep you from going this direction. Don't worry, you're not going to get charged, but you are from now on going to do what I have called you to do. You know what I mean?
Serve and love
if
others.
I know if I turn my back on that in any sort of way, and I mean nobody's perfect.
No.
But I mean, if I like do like a Jonah and completely do a 180 on God and go the opposite direction than what he's calling me to do, then it's not. I probably won't even make it a day. Because he's given me that last chance. You know, like I really feel like I can even like feel that on me.
You now,
like he's like puts it into my mind that like I promise you do not want to turn your back on me ever again. Because I try to throw that in, because it's not, you know, God loves us for sure, but he loves us in a way that he wants us to be back with him and home with him and in his presence, you know. And there's a lot of things that we can do that won't allow that to happen, you know. So, but he gives us free will too, but at the same time, and this is where God can get kind of confusing sometimes, is we have free will, but there's also things that he's like ordained and things that will like happen no matter what. And for whatever reason, I guess there's something that he's ordained, and if I would have went that other direction with all those charges and all that, then whatever it is that he's ordained would not have happened. And that's the only way I look at it. And I'm just the beneficiary of it, you know. I just get to reap the benefits of the freedom of it, but it really has nothing to do with me, you know. So
Jason, tell us a little bit about when Jordan called you and how you got hired here at Reckless.
Yeah, I was still in the program back in Maine, and at that point I was running the shifts, like working for him or whatever. And I knew I needed to finish. Like, in all honesty, like some programs, I don't know, some people might not know, but you're actually court ordered there. You have to finish the program. If you leave, you go back to jail. So I wasn't court ordered. I went in there on my own, and those charges got dropped. So there was nothing really holding me there, you know. But I still, you know, there's something about finishing things, you know. And I've been through this before, so I was like, I'm staying here. I'm not leaving. You know,
you knew you
finish
could
this
do
thing
it.
out.
Yeah.
And Jordan got a hold of me. I actually, I can't remember where it was. I don't even remember now, but I had one place that I was possibly going to work. And one of the staff members actually let me go and stay at his apartment for 2 days on a weekend. It was kind of like taking a pass. Usually you can go with your family for like a couple days, like one time in the program. But I didn't have anybody around, so he offered to just go stay at his apartment for a couple nights. So anyway, I was like, yeah, I want to kind of pray about some things, figure out what I'm going to do, you know, kind of get away for a couple days. And he's like, yeah. So I stayed there at his house. And so while I'm thinking about doing this one job, Jordan texts me. And I hadn't talked to him since before going to the program. I'd reached out to him about possibly having him help me get into a program. But I decided to stay in Maine and go there. But anyway, he texts me. And it's like a few like pleasantries, you know, like, hey, how are you? Good, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And then he comes right out and just says, when are you coming to work for me? And I already knew that I wanted to stay. Actually, I think I was thinking about going back to Missouri. That's what it was, yeah. And I'd already talked, that's what it was. I'd already talked to them, and they were going to take me back. And they actually gave me an offer about how I'd get started and everything. And so I knew I was going back to ministry in some way. But then Jordan called me, and like him and I were always real close through the program, and then we always close after we completed. And like I was working in ministry, he was working in ministry, and then so it was nice. It just kind of like finally all came together, and he reached out to me. And but at the time, I still had like a month and a half or so left, and they really needed some help here. They really needed a work director because it's April, and things are starting to really pick up. They got lawn mowing starting and all these things, and I think Graham Darby, who was on the board, even mentioned like a couple different times during that month and a half, like, hey, like, are we really waiting for this guy? You know, like, we need some help. And Jordan kept telling him, no, we're waiting for him. He said he's going to finish that program. He's going to finish the program. But he's like, I'm telling you, he's the one that we need. He's the one we want. Yeah. So he kind of stuck his neck out for me a couple times. And so the last couple weeks in that program, I was able to work for a landscaper. And they allow you to keep the money. Like it can actually like the last 2 months, but the virus hit and all that stuff was going on. But I did work the last couple weeks, so I made up just enough money. Oh, and I got my tax return done, so I had just enough money to I rented a rental car, packed up all my stuff as much as I could in the rental car, and I drove all the way out here. So it's kind of
26 hours, was it?
Yeah, it was like 28, I think.
Golly.
I left on like a Monday morning at 10 a.m. and I showed up Tuesday afternoon. I only stopped for like a half hour.
Golly. I don't know how you
I went out behind a gas station and laid my head back for like 30 minutes because I was getting too tired. And then I kept going.
What a champ.
I walked into the Reckless house. That used to be the Reckless house. We've moved now, but everybody was in the office and stuff. And I walk in the door and Jordan looks up and he does a double take. And he's like, you're here already? Yeah. So, yeah. Gosh. I don't know, something about it. I didn't want to pull over. I just wanted to get it done.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's gone good since. I ended up taking over the work director position. And
doing a fantastic job.
Been a struggle lately. I know a lot of people know, but I somehow have managed to come up with these episodes of Vertigo. And it got to the point where it was just about nonstop all day long. And I've actually got a patch right here, back in my ear, that pretty much is the only reason I can even function. And even then, I can't really, if I do too much, I get really exhausted and I start getting vertigo and dizzy and nauseous and want to throw up. And so it's been a struggle. And so I'm waiting for my insurance to approve an appointment. I'm supposed to go to some special physical therapist, vestibular physical therapist.
I know we have a lot of prayer warriors on our YouTube channel and out there on Facebook. So if you're a prayer warrior, would you please pray for our brother Jason? Yeah. He has some appointments coming up and just dealing with the vertigo. I know it has been horrible for you. And
and it's just one of those deals. It's like, I mean, everybody that has something go on has to deal with it. You got to wait for your insurance on everything. It takes 2-3 weeks. Yeah. And then sometimes you wait 2-3 weeks and they say no, and you got to go a different direction. And
2 more weeks.
Jeez, it's just that's the. Everybody's done a great job helping me. My doctors are doing good and everything, but it's just the insurance. So. Yeah. So. But that's why I mentioned actually doing this to Jordan last week, just to. I kind of need to do something to give myself I feel like I was putting some time in somewhere. So hopefully somebody that it's very easy to get in situations where you don't see a way out of it. You think, I've gone too far.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, sometimes you get in those situations and you think that, you know what, the damage is done, so I might as well just keep going. Like, you don't even bother trying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just give up. It's like, yeah, I've done too much, and nothing's going to turn around. Nobody's ever going to like me again. I'm never going to be trusted. I'm never going to... And you just decide to ride that out, So, I could very easily, with as much as I had going on at that time, with all the charges and plus losing so much trust, because it's one thing if you're caught up in addiction and you go to rehab and stuff and you get yourself straightened out, people want to trust you again.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do that once and then you're sober for a while and then you get back into it again, it's a whole new level of shame that you do not want to go through. It was so difficult to pull myself up out of that. But once God, when I went to that court date and they said I was free to go, and it was just it took 2 days for it to even set in. And then I was crying nonstop.
Yeah.
Because I knew what God had done for me, and I knew that there was hope. I was gonna turn things around again, and it just gave me such an energy and determination to get it all right again, So I know, for myself, I've learned some things that it's just I cannot do. Period. I cannot go work 7-12 hours on the road and working all over the place. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I need to be somewhere. I'm home every night. And I can be involved, I go with your father to a men's lunch once a week. We haven't done it in a couple weeks, but with a few guys from church, I need that. I go to church on Sundays. You and I work in the sound booth.
Yeah.
Tech guys at church, so I'm serving as well. We go speak at rehabs. This is what I need to do.
That accountability.
If I stay do this every day, it doesn't even necessarily have to be at Reckless, but as long as I'm doing something along these lines, I'll never have a problem ever again.
Yeah.
But when I get away from this, and then all of a sudden I'm not going to church, and it's been 2 months since I've read my Bible, and it's been 2 months since I've done anything productive, like a men's meeting, a luncheon or whatever, and I just stay zeroed in on money and work, and then I can't do it, and that's okay. I'm not going to go make $25, $30 an hour again as a welder like I have in the past, but that's all right.
Yeah.
I'd rather do this
mm-hmm.
and be alive every day,
so much
trustworthy and helping people and being healthy and all that, and.
Because this is what God's ultimately called you to do, don't you believe?
Definitely. I mean, He didn't do that for me. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Just like that verse says, serve others.
Definitely. That's why I get a tattoo in my hand. I didn't have any tattoos before this, and usually people say oh, if you're gonna get one first, have it on something on your back so your T-shirt covers it or whatever in case I was like, no, I want it right there, because that's not there for anybody else.
Yeah.
That's there for me. I want to see that on my hand every single day.
A reminder.
I want to make sure that I always remember that. So.
Yeah. Well, Jason, you have been a fantastic guest on this show. We thank you for telling us your story, and both of us are thankful for God's grace.
Yeah.
That car wreck could have ended totally different. You couldn't be here today.
And the worst part of it, I mean, before the charges even got dropped, I was given mercy and grace to begin with anyway, because nobody else was hurt. That was the first, how I didn't hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
A little kid, whatever, a married couple, whatever.
Yeah.
How I didn't wreck somebody else while I, went off. And my mother was in a serious wreck. My mother has 26 screws and 3 rods in her spine, which is a whole nother story I can tell sometime. But, from a drunk driver. She was actually getting transported to a hospital ambulance. And a drunk driver hit the ambulance. So yeah, I mean, I've been through some stuff before too that should have told me to not do what I was doing,
Yeah.
So just that in itself was enough, way more than I deserved anyway. And then the fact that the charges got dropped on top of it is just a whole nother level of.
Yeah.
So
if you are listening in and you are just needing some hope, wanting to go to treatment, something like that, just give us a call at 918-864-2719, and we would love to help you. Our intake ladies would love to talk to you and get you into treatment.
Yep.
So, thank you, Jason, for being here.
Thank you.
You got another word?
Time?
Nope. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and stay reckless, live free, and die sober.
Thanks, guys.